Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast. You got Tanner standing here.
We are standing here. We're outstanding
In our studio. We're outstanding in our pod. That was
When
lame.
you've been here long enough,
Yeah,
you got to just stand up.
Oof,
You
it's
got to go
like
swing a golf club.
it's one of those things like when you get out of the seat of a semi and you take that first step down the step and you realize your legs have almost gone to sleep.
Yep. And the older we get, the more dad noises we got to make. Yep.
But you're here for a Farm for Fun episode. This is kind of a neat little crossover. Obviously, we've got another podcaster, but then we're talking about the trucking industry today. So we get to meet Jared and hang out with him. But listeners, we appreciate you as a guest in our, or hosting us as a guest in your ear. How do you say that?
Thanks for letting us be in your ear hole.
In your ear hole. Or your eyeballs, because you watch us on YouTube,
Yeah.
social media. So we thank you for all of that. Remember, share this with your friends, family, and enemies. We would appreciate
Definitely your enemies.
all the opportunity to do that. Reach out to us. Let us know what you're thinking. Somebody that we should talk to. I don't need to say them because you already know to send to farmforprofitllc@gmail.com or to send us a text message or call us at 515-207-9640. Or Corey's home address is...
No, because then Rick will send me stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got a very nice package on my anniversary. What
very
are the
good.
freaking odds
Should
that it
put
would
that
be
out on our story.
on our anniversary? But
You're going to do this with no headphones. You're going to blow
I
me out
know
again.
I'm not going to blow you out. That's reserved for other situations. I'll pull the headphones on so we can gauge this. Wait for the music to drop. Go.
Today on the Farm for Fun show, we are heading to a parallel industry. This man is a fellow podcaster. He started at the Kansas City Board of Trade in 2005. That's where he got his start in the grain industry. Then he started his own load board, a company called BulkLoads in 2011, where he has had several spin-offs, including the BulkLoads podcast in 2018. He has one of the best podcast backdrops in the industry, and I am saying that with this in the background. Please welcome from Missouri, Mr. Jared Flinn of BulkLoads.
Yeah, all right. We're talking nothing but big loads today.
Yeah, I did. I didn't even make a joke about it, but there Tanner goes.
All right, let's jump into that episode right now. All right, it is our pleasure to bring fellow podcaster. I feel like a lot of podcasters have been connecting lately.
That's good. It's a good time of year to do that. Things have slowed down a little bit in the ag world. Still doesn't seem like a lot, though. So, this week,
You're ready to go to the field again.
I'm ready to go to the field. We're going to have a tiny little window here to maybe get some anhydrous and maybe some tillage done because we were waiting for moisture and temperature to drop after harvest because it was so dry. And we got it, and it never stopped. So,
we're going to find out what's going on in Jared's neck of the woods. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jared Flinn.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
where are you coming from today?
I am coming from Springfield, Missouri, Southwest Mo. So we're down in cattle country, not so much crop country, but
Okay.
This Southwest Missouri, it's actually, there's a county north of here. It's actually has the most cow-calf production, I think, per acre than anywhere else in the country. So pretty interesting. And I never knew, I'm a Missouri native. I grew up on the west side of St. Louis, rural area. But we moved down here 15 years ago, but yeah, I didn't realize how big cattle production was, especially down here in Southwest Missouri.
Yeah, that's good country.
I don't know why I thought you were from Colorado.
That's just
Love
no
Colorado, love the mountains, but no, not, yeah.
Debt is not always a bad thing when it comes to the ag industry, but mismanaged debt is a bad thing 100% of the time. Now, out of looking at hundreds of family farm operations over the past 5 years and looking at the financials, the number one thing that got these operations into a bad position wasn't just necessarily taking on debt, but it was mismanaging that debt or taking on bad debt, essentially, because they did not have the clarity in their finances to know whether or not they were making the right decision. This is the number one thing that people want inside this industry today is some level of financial certainty and and confidence when it comes to making those decisions. And this is what we have been doing with hundreds of family farm operations across the country over the past 5 years inside of Legacy Farmer using our software called Farmer Metrics. Now, if you want to learn more about taking your operation from a place of chaos and disorganization financially to a place of absolute confidence and clarity, so you're no longer shooting from the hip when it comes to making these massive financial decisions, and just for the first time have some level of certainty where you're going into the next year, then go to legacyfarmer.com and sign up for a free call with our team today.
So I think I sent Tanner a clip of your podcast. Oh gosh, it was a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, you've done it multiple times.
Yeah. And what caught me, not just your awesome content, but was your background. It has one of the coolest backgrounds that I've ever seen in a podcast. And I thought, how freaking cool is that? And so for the people that are just listening, I'm just going to describe it to you. It is the back of what looks like a hopper bottom trailer. I don't know what brand. Probably he's gonna tell us, but he's got the lights working and everything.
Yep.
Cornhusker. Okay. And so that's cool. Got the rivets, got the reflective tape. I mean, everything, the ladder. The detail is perfect. I imagine it came right from the factory.
It did. So we stole this idea. There was a trucking company out in Idaho that some of our guys went out and visited, John Pocock, and he's got a similar replica of this in his office. So when you walk in, if you turn to the left, you see this trailer. So they came back and we're like, how do we do that? So we reached out to a couple of the vendors, and Cornhusker was gracious to make this and ship it down to us. So yeah, it's actual, the right size, and they did all the wiring on the back end. And yeah, it's a pretty cool piece. Thank you.
And it's painted. It's not stainless or, not a shiny hiney. So, but that wouldn't probably be best for the lights and cameras that you got going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's. I thought you were going to say you kept sending it to me because of his strong jawline.
Well,
it has to do with.
He's a good looking dude.
Well, why are you sitting there with a background? You've got a real mic. It's because you host a podcast of your own, right?
Yeah, so we started the BulkLoads podcast back in 2018. Had the idea. Obviously, we're in the trucking industry, and one thing we realized was truckers, out of a lot of people, have a lot of time on the road, a lot of time to spend listening. So why not be a voice out there for them and create really good content, good, clean content for them? So yeah, we started that back in 2018. I think in the trucking space, and not to brag, but I think we're somewhere in the top 5 for trucking podcasts. If you kind of search the trucking space. So yeah, we're super proud of that. But yeah, we release an episode every week. It was, I think 2 years ago, we started doing video along with the audio. And that's really taken off our channel. I think it's actually crazy. We've seen more growth on our YouTube channel than we have just on the audio side.
Sounds oddly familiar.
How you said you started it because you're in the trucking business. What's the business look like?
Yeah, so BulkLoads we started BulkLoads in 2011, myself and another partner, Matt Ferdine. But BulkLoads is an online marketplace where we connect grain shippers with brokers and trucking companies all online. So the generic word is a load board. We're a load board, and there's others out there for general freight. There's load boards for van freight, refrigerated freight, flatbed freight. We came along in 2011 and started one specifically for bulk. So when I say bulk commodity freight, as a lot of your listeners know, I'm talking about hopper bottom freight, in dump, walking floors, belt trailers, pneumatics, tankers, all your kind of raw commodity trailer types. But basically we created a website or an app where we're connecting those companies sometimes for the first time. So someone's looking for a load and we basically match make them or marry them with that company. But then also companies is just trying to fill in the gap. So truck may be taking a load of DDG or cottonseed or you name it out somewhere. We're helping him find that reload coming back. And that's trucking. If anybody knows anything about trucking, it's always changing. I mean, there's a lot of dedicated lanes, but loads fall off, loads got to get diverted. So we're kind of in the middle always. I guess I like to call it organized chaos when you're dealing with trucking.
Well, it's logistics, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And what I've learned this year is agriculture and farming it's just a big logistics problem. Yeah, we talk agronomy and soil and different crops, but at the end of the day, when you're in the heat of the battle, it's trying to figure out how many loads are coming off that field, how long it's going to take them to dump and get them back, how many employees am I going to need, how much fuel do I need? Like it's just a big logistical nightmare. And so that's all we're trying to solve is the logistics problem.
It's interesting you bring that up. And I've said this, my listeners know this, I've said it 100 times, but I got started in the grain industry in 2005, went to go work for a large grain company based in Kansas City, Bartlett Grain Company. And it was my second week on the job. I'm in a conference meeting, all the commodity managers, vice presidents in this conference or in this conference room. Well, we're getting ready to leave, and the vice president comes up to me, introduces himself. He's like, "Hey, Jared, I'm Jack Moran." And I'm like, "Oh, good to meet you." And again, I'm fresh, just out of college, coming to this company. And he looks at me, he goes, "I just want you to remember one thing while you're here." He goes, "We are a logistics company that moves grain." And I was like, "What?" And again, I'm brand new. I'm like, "What does he mean by, I thought we were a grain company. We have all these grain bins and we're, trading all this grain." But he just really instilled that. He's like, "Just remember, we're a logistics company that's moving grain." And I think that's really what set the tone for me to realize just how valuable transportation is in the grain industry. I mean, I don't know what percent, but it's just a huge amount of the success of grain companies and farmers and anybody in the supply chain.
Right. And, obviously everyone would like to move it with a boat or a rail, but you guys are what picks up the slack in between.
Most times it usually always starts and usually ends on a truck. And so it's a very integral part of the industry.
So would you say most of your loads is longer hauls?
Yeah, good question. In bulk, it's actually it's interesting. It can be all the above. So when you're talking about grains, most of that stuff travels less distant on truck and more on rail, just because railroads, one thing we know, railroads, barges, vessels, they love commodities, and they especially love grain commodities because they can load it fast, they can ship it fast. So they will always usually outprice actual truck freight. So when you get to the raw grains, corn, soybeans, and all that, you're not going to see a lot of it move long distance unless it's specialty, unless it's your organics, something that's going to be specialized, pet food, that type of stuff. Where we see more of our longer stuff, like I said, it's going to be your pet food, your fertilizer, stuff that's just a little bit more niche-y. And that's kind of where when we come into play. Most companies that interact on our platform, and we deal with all of the above, but it's going to be those longer hauls where you're not really, you got to find either a reload or something coming back. Some of the stuff, it'll get priced both ways, but typically if it's moving over 250 miles, 300 miles, that trucker's got to find a reload. Otherwise it's not going to be a profitable run for him.
I've got his website pulled up and I think you undersold it. You have a permitting tab, you've got an insurance tab, you've got a factoring tab. I mean, like this is full service.
Yeah, well, that's one thing we learned early on, that so BulkLoads, we started just to be a load board. That was the idea in 2011, and our goal was always to get to 1,000 members. We just said, man, if we can get to 1,000 members, this will be enough that we can pay the bills, keep running, provide food on the table. I can't remember the time frame. It was within a couple years, within 2 years, I think we hit 1,000. Today, we're proud. We almost have 7,000 on the platform, 7,000 companies that interact on the platform. But I've learned that's just business 101. You one thing you're always taught is listen to your customers and listen to what they're saying. So it was within 2012 or 13, one of the biggest problems that we saw after we got these customers on the platform was a lot of them were having trouble getting paid. Companies like ADM, Cargill, I won't go through the list, but usually the bigger the companies, the slower they are on paying their bills. And a lot of times they know they can do that because they have the scale and power to do that. Well, a lot of the companies we deal with are small trucking companies. These companies, tight cash flow, when they're hauling that load, most times you're talking it's like 5 to 10% profit margin. So they got 90% of that cost already wrapped into the fuel, the truck, and all that. So they got to get paid pretty quick. So 2014, we launched Smart Freight Funding, which is our factoring arm. If people don't know what factoring arm is, we basically were a quick pay or next day pay on these invoices. So instead of that company taking that load that they haul, sending it to ADM, they send it to us. We get them paid next day, usually a small percentage fee. It can range anywhere from 2 to 3% of the load. But what it does, it gives instant cash flow for the carrier, and then he can keep running. And then we turn around and we do all the back office support and wait whatever the net is, 30, 40 days to get paid. But that was probably the biggest one because I know cash flow is king, and you gotta have the cash to keep flow or to keep the wheels turning.
And the way you get paid is that percentage there, or where the loads need to move, and you get a percentage of that.
So for us, it's just a percentage of the invoice. So they haul the load, we get them paid the invoice minus whatever the percentage of that is. So,
okay.
Say it's 3%. If it's $1,000 load, $30 would be our commission or percentage that we would take. We pay them the $970 the next day, and that way they don't have to worry about it.
Yep. And knowing that, okay. And then the scope of your customer, is it mom and pop owner operators? Is it the ADMs? Could a farmer call you up and, want to move grain?
Yeah. So most of our customers, and this is trucking in general, when you look at trucking all across the United States, I'll put it this way. When you think of like the big companies, the JB Hunts, Warner, Swifts, put all those, if you take all those big boys with 150, 200 trucks, you put them all together, they still only represent 7% of the whole trucking industry. So that other 93%, they are considered small business owners. It's usually 5 or less trucks. So it's a super spread out, fragmented market. That's where our services really come into value, because a lot of these small companies, the mom pops, like you said, they don't have secretary, bookkeeper, accountant, finance, all you go through the list. So most times the person that we're dealing with, he's the owner of the truck, he's the driver of the truck, he's the mechanic of the truck, he's making all those decisions. So our goal is really to be the back office or support to help him on those back ones, help him find the load quickly, get paid quickly. And then we can talk about some of these other business units that we've created along the way. But that's really been the premise. It's really focused. Now we have 20 truck, 30, we have some over 100 truck operators. But I think if you look at the industry as a whole, the heart of the audience that we serve or customers are going to be that 5 or less trucking size companies.
Just a lot of similarities to farming.
It is. Well, I talk about all the time when you talk about this and farming, it just goes back and forth. And the beautiful thing is that we're at the crosshairs of both. I mean, because we're dealing with agriculture, guys that are trucking, and a good percentage. I don't know this exact statistics, but I would say maybe 15 to 20% of our user base are farmers. You typically, it's one or the other. They have a farming operation. They already got the hopper and truck. So then they get a commercial license to run. So usually it's another service that they have in addition to the farming operation. So that's another thing we see a lot of.
The insurance tab intrigues me as well. We got 5 trucks, a bunch of trailers. Can anybody sign up and join the insurance pool?
Yeah. So the insurance, we are an insurance agency or an insurance brokerages. So we're not the actual insurance company yet, I should say, but we represent, you can go through the list. Trucking, it's very specialized. Yeah. There's Progressive and Geico, just like on home and auto lines, but there's other nichier, bigger trucking type insurance companies that we represent. But yeah, that was when we started. We're going on almost year 3 of that. So yeah, it's another pain point. I don't have to tell you how frustrating insurance can be. So it was another one that we thought that, man, we could get involved, hopefully provide a better service, better options, more affordability, and just better coverage. And at that time, again, we're already helping the guy with his loads. We're already helping that individual with his cash flow. Why not have this be another part of the business that we can kind of help them offset?
All right. I want to go back to little Jared. I want your background. I want to know how you grew up and how you got into what you're doing.
Yeah. So as I said earlier on the podcast, grew up Eastern Missouri, about 50 miles west of St. Louis. High school I went to was Troy, town of Troy, but grew up on a super small farm, 240 acres west of there. Believe it or not, we had all the above. I mean, row crop, pasture, but really grew up in the sawmill. My dad and uncle started a sawmill and did that from I mean, I think that I was 8, maybe 9 years old. I can remember my dad building these stools for us to stand on just so we could operate the machinery. And, but yeah, I did that all the way up through high school, was really big in FFA, and went to the University of Missouri, graduated from there with an ag degree. And then that's where I went. Actually, the cool kind of God story, I guess I would say, was graduated from Mizzou. That was in 2002. The job market was still pretty rough. You guys, I think you look close to my age, but we all remember 9/11. The job market there was nothing. And so I stuck around. Well, got on as a delivery truck driver for a local company, had my Class A CDL, and started driving a truck. And this was more on a local basis. So I wasn't over the road. It was a straight truck with a pup, but it was delivering construction materials. But that's where I really learned a little bit more about logistics and dispatching and trucking. Did that for a couple of years, met my wife. She was living in Kansas City, started looking for a job up there. And it was interesting. I put my resume online, and this is way back in the day, not thinking anything of it, but it was, I can specifically remember it was one Wednesday afternoon. I was working out on the truck and get this call, and it was from a job recruiter at Bartlett Grain Company. And he said, "Hey, I see you got ag background and some trucking experience. We'd like to talk to you." And I can remember that next week driving to Kansas City, and small farm town kid. I just get my grandma and grandpa bought me this suit for graduating college, my first suit, but I remember wearing it, going and interviewing. It was right at the Kansas City Board of Trade at that time, Bartlett Grain. They were on the top 2 floors. And I can remember going up there, elevator door opening, red carpet, mahogany wood. I just was so out of my realm, but interviewing with the commodity managers. And then a week later, they offered me the job. So that was really my start in the grain and logistics business.
That's what we're missing here in the studio. We need red carpet
and mahogany.
And mahogany. We've got some good solid wood.
Some rich barn wood back there. No.
But I think I was going to say what was interesting for me personally when I went to go work at Bartlett. At that time, I think there was a guy that was doing some trucking stuff, and for whatever reason, they let him go, or he had left, and no one was doing trucking. So a lot of the commodity managers, a lot of them, I'd go to talk to them. Well, none of them wanted to do trucking. You talked about trucking. It was a bad word. It was like a 4-letter word. People they didn't want to deal with trucks, a pain in the butt. So most of the commodity managers at that time, they were buying everything they were buying everything delivered. They weren't buying an FOB. And when I started to work there, I just started realizing there was an opportunity to start going out, figuring out freight rates, and it just allowed us to actually buy more grain because of it. So we actually started buying more grain FOB, coordinating the freight, even matching up freight with other freight. And that's kind of where it all really started, and really fell in love with the logistics business.
That's awesome. What year would that have been that you went to the Kansas City Board of Trade?
2005 is when I started. Yeah. April 2005.
So, yeah, you've been in it for a while.
Yeah.
Awesome. I got a completely random question. Tanner saw that I drew a picture of it.
Yeah.
Do you guys,
Your
say
drawing sucks, by the way.
bulk materials. I see those trailers going down the road that looks like 3 or 4 bins with like tubes connecting to the bottom. I think they're a pneumatic trailer.
That's exactly right.
That?
Yep.
Do they get?
Yep.
What are those?
So pneumatics, it can be a wide variety. So I'll tell you the reason why the pneumatic versus other trailer types, those tanks are compressurized. So a lot of times if that product inside has to be blown out, usually blown into like a silo or something else, that's why they have to use those trailers. So where we see a lot of them, and you'll see them locally, a lot of cement haulers run pneumatics, so that powdery cement, a lot of times it can't get hauled in a hopper or an end dump. It packs up too much. So it's got to be compressurized and blown out. The pneumatics got really popular back in the frac sand hauling days. A lot of the companies were using it to haul frac sand because a lot of these tanks, they deliver those out to a job site and they would blow them into these silos that would then be used in the fracking operations. We also see them in this industry on the food side. So there are, I mean, man, I think up in Iowa, Food Liner, there's some big companies that do food grade stuff. But again, the whole premise around it is it's usually dry bulk commodities that have to be pressed or pushed out and blown into something.
Be like milk replacer.
Yeah, that would be another one. Yeah. Yeah, milk replacement would be another really big one. Plastics and resins are another one. Fly ash is another one. You're talking industrial. So it's usually something that's real fine and real powdery.
Yeah. So there's a town about 15 miles away, and there's a trucker over there that probably has a dozen of those, and I've seen them, and I've just never thought to ask, what the heck they were. I figured that was what it was, but they're just a really unique trailer.
Yeah.
Speaking of trailers, who makes the best hopper bottom trailer?
Well, he's got one right behind him. You think he's going to say anything else?
It's not.
Can't ask me that question. Can't ask me that question. I can tell you who's got the market share. So if you break down, and I don't know, I don't have the exact math in front of me. Tempty typically has the largest market share of the hopper bottom market. And you'll see more Tempty trailers out there. I think Wilson would be right behind them. And then I would believe Cornhusker would be trailing as well. But then you get some real specialized. Actually, I was up in Pennsylvania last month. EB is, if you ever seen those hoppers, so a lot of these have the rivets and all that. EB makes a slick wall hopper bottom, and you'll see it. It's just, it doesn't look like the rest of them. And it's actually really cool. But it's a slick sided one. And that's another one that we see some guys more in the East, just where they're based out of, not as much in the Midwest.
So we're actually seeing EBs around here now because they're making them 20 minutes north of us in Story City.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
And
perfect.
So pretty sharp truck. I remember seeing the first one down at our state fair, and I think it was like all stainless, like mirrored, and like you could literally just go take a selfie in it, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. The hopper bottom market, it's really not that old. I mean, I think it wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it wasn't until the 70s or 80s before they actually created the actual hopper flow grain. Before that, a lot of grain was still shipped on flatbeds with side kits. So a lot of these grain terminals, they had to have the hoist that hoisted the whole trailer, sometimes a truck and trailer up to dump the grain out the back, or you had to have a dump truck with a hoist to get it out.
Yeah, my dad tells stories about going down to ADM and going up on the hoist.
Oh,
yeah. They would dump the whole truck.
That'd be a ride.
So my old company, Bartlett Grain, they had a 70-foot. They still have at their downtown Kansas City one. And back in the day, we would book a lot of dry van trailers. We'd blow wheat in them out in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, and it would lift that whole truck and trailer. I mean, I got pictures, but I mean, it was every bit of.
Think of how long that would take now with the amount of stuff that we have to move and the extra effort and power and breakdowns, hydraulics, all that.
Well, I just know how good the brakes are on the trucks that I run. You better have me locked into place.
Yeah, I think
my brakes ain't holding.
Not at 90 or 100,000 pounds.
They don't even hold it on flat ground.
Yeah.
I'm curious. We've been obviously staring at your Cornhusker trailer, but you've got a display there behind you where the catwalk is, and it looks like a bunch of children's books. What's that all about?
Yeah, so this was something within I guess we've kind of really got this going in the past 5 years. My kids now are a little bit older. My daughter, she's 15, and then I got a 12-year-old and 10-year-old boy. When the boys were babies, we did, at nighttime we had a little rocking chair and we had a little bookshelves with all the kids' books, and you know what I'm talking about. If you got kiddos, Pete the Cat and Little Blue Truck, Little Red Truck, you can go through all the different stories. Well, I kept always asking my wife, I was like, can you find any kids' books on trucking? And she'd bring home some that were like, it was like monster machines. So it would have like it'd be pictures of big excavators and stuff like that. But she could never find anything on semi trucks. So I had the idea, and the idea, I guess, was probably 8 years ago when they were still little tykes. But why not create a fictional character that's a semi truck? So just like Thomas the Train, why don't we make a trucking character called Semi Sam and go through his adventures? So that was kind of the start of it. I love art, and I did art when I was in high school. My mom's an artist. And so I started sketching these images, and just started to think of kind of cool storylines. So that's really what brought out Semi Sam. So yeah, we started, I think we released or finally got the first one to copy 3 or 4 years ago. And, yeah, it's just been fun. We try to release another one every year. We got 5 books as of today. And so it's everything from Semi Sam delivering a tractor to the farm, Semi Sam going to a truck show. We just released one this fall, Semi Sam delivers pumpkins. So yeah, it's just a fun character, or just a fun storyline. Our goal with these, you can find them on Amazon, anywhere. We probably give more out to our customers. It's just a good piece when our guys go to visit farmers, trucking companies. Most people have a child or grandchild, niece or nephew that can buy these books. So my goal or intent with these books are really to get them in the hands of children, just to really teach the value of trucking, number one, but also agriculture. And our goal is to keep doing that.
Cool.
That's great. I grew up with the Johnny Tractor books. They kind of got a little bit of the same feel, and I know my mom still has them. Those are not something that's ever going to get thrown away themselves. But did I miss it? Did you do the artwork in the books, or you just enjoy art?
So the first sketches, I started sketching together. Then I gave it to a graphic artist that did like computer print. Those were the first 3 books that we did. We actually, a gentleman in our office who's our videographer, his wife is an artist, Claire Ziegler, and she's actually taken over the illustration. So the newer books are now hand sketched by her and illustrated, and she's done a phenomenal job. Actually, the newer books now that we do are so much better, just because, again, it gives it more that, I don't want to say Pete the Cat look, but just that real drawing type look and not just a computer generated image.
Is she for hire?
I can reach out and ask, but yeah, potentially. So,
are you ready to power through your harvest? Meet the Maya Cornheads. They're designed for maximum efficiency and unmatched durability in the toughest of conditions.
With precision engineering and advanced features, Maya Cornheads ensures every kernel counts, giving you the performance and reliability that you need. Get more from your harvest with equipment built to last.
Reach out to your local Maya Cornheads dealer or visit mayacornheads.com to find your perfect match today. Maya Cornheads, harvest with confidence.
You know what book series I want to do?
What's that?
I want to do a John at Stapler Farms
Oh boy,
book series for kids.
He probably has no idea.
Well, I know, but our listeners would know. Corey's got an alter ego. He's got the local BTO personality, and that character's John at Stapler Farms. So he's the ambulance chaser, the one that's calling the retired farmer's wife, the one that there's a lot of life lessons for children that could come out.
I haven't done a good one for a while, but I thought about the next time that we're in here recording. If you hear the sirens fire up and they start going, it's like, nope, I gotta go.
Sorry, follow the ambulance.
It's funny. So when we talk about this, we will start goofing around, but like you can come up with so many creative characters and storylines, but like real life examples plugged into characters. So it's fun just to kind of imagine some of these other characters you can create and how it relates to real life stories.
Yeah. So what other topics, or what topics are you covering on obviously we're loads, right? But like you got one show per week, how do you come up with your content? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this the same, how the shows evolved from the beginning, in our very beginning. And we try to do, bring on actual trucking company members and some of their success stories. But everything from, anything that encompasses trucking. But what I was going to say, what I've learned more than anything is trucking is a business, just like farming is a business, just like banking is a business. You put all this together and there's just a lot of these very similar core principles. I think that's where, as we've evolved, I've realized, man, these principles are more valuable than, or maybe just as valuable as the specifics. And if we can get the principles down and teach those principles to our audience, the rest will all kind of come into play. So instead of talking about why insurance rates are through the roof or bad, why don't we talk about, hey, how do we get good practices in safety and compliance and stuff like that? So that's kind of, I guess, how we've morphed. And I think, and I'll be honest to say this, we always want to see high viewerships and clickbait type stuff, but I've realized like that's not really valuing our customers like like we should. Like, yeah, when you bring somebody on to trash talk somebody else or whatever, yeah, it creates controversy and stir, but like, are we really serving our client the best way? Are we really giving them something? I guess that's where I take it to heart. I want to provide content, clean content that people can walk away and be like, wow, I got something from this. I can use this. There's an example here that I can do to better myself.
I think you can get some of that out of the trash talking too. If you want us to say something bad about someone, we can do that. No.
There's still that happens. And again, I'm not kind of like our show is Mr. Perfect and we don't get all that and the debates. But I think for me, I don't search for that as much as I search for, what can apply to someone's business or life that's going to provide a positive impact.
Yeah. And I get that wholeheartedly. I think
what I saw in trucking, and this is where I've really changed. I'm 44 now. And again, started in the industry when I was 25, but it's really changed to where I saw trucking as very cyclical. And even today, the amount of truckers that get in and out of the market, it's like 110%. That's how much turnover you get. And, a lot of, kind of post-COVID early on, there's a lot of people got into trucking, man. Everybody thought they could make money. We've seen a big flush out, but how do we help these guys and create less turnover? And I think that's where early on, I guess the young Jared would say, like, it is what it is. It's going to happen. I guess the Jared now said, like, hey, I think we can have a positive impact. I think we can help reduce this churn. I think we can help guys find profitable loads. I think we can help guys get better quotes on their insurance. I think we can help guys get their money quicker and be sustainable. And that's kind of where we really changed our shift.
So where's it going? What do you think the future of it looks like?
The future of BulkLoads, yeah, I'm super excited. I'm a visionary. I'm a daydreamer, and I think that's where, there's God puts people on earth for different roles, and everybody serves a crucial role. For me to be fulfilled, I always feel like I got to be creating, and I don't know why. It's just something like there's got to be something new, a new idea that I got, a new product. So I think where I see BulkLoads going in the future, it's continuing to look at this end-to-end process from. We call it the load life cycle. So from the very beginning to the load to the end of the load and everything that's involved in the middle, a couple of things I didn't mention. We have started another industry or another company called bulk permitting, but that's also where we get people set up with their own authorities. So we can get somebody set up with their DOT compliance. We can do all the regulatory stuff. So like we're starting at the very, very beginning phase of trucking. Like we're actually helping this guy that was a company driver actually get a company name, get the stickers put on the side of his door. So I see us moving more that direction. I want to get more involved in helping these guys get good loans and financing for their equipment. That's an area that we haven't tackled. So again, I can go down the hole, but I think for us, for where I dream is where we just continue to kind of create this full ecosystem where you can go through the list, everything that trucker has to deal with or anything that freight, that we can have a hand in that and be involved.
Nice. What's some of the biggest challenges you have in the trucking industry right now?
Challenges in the trucking industry. I'll give you kind of macroly, and then I'll talk kind of microly within our specifics. But I think trucking industry as a whole, we got to figure out how to be safer on the roads. These accident billboard attorneys, I think when we look, and again, it was surprising when we got into the insurance game, I was actually surprised. Number one, how much these guys are paying for insurance compared to even 10 years ago. I mean, a lot of these companies, something like one truck operator, especially a brand new guy, can be paying $40,000, $50,000 a year. That same guy was paying maybe $5,000 to $6,000. So, I mean, it's went up like 10 times. How do we kind of reverse that cycle? Obviously, we see these nuclear verdicts, billboard attorneys. So I think that's a big problem that we see in the industry. In this industry, you got these small owner operators. There's a lot of companies preying on these people. And how do we stop predatory practices? Again, we're all accountable for ourselves, but I think sometimes people like to prey on the weak and the vulnerable. How do we reduce that in the industry? I think too, you hear this driver myth thing or driver shortage myth. And again, like I said, it is a myth. I think there's plenty of well-capable drivers out there, but I think the industry's got to do a better job of promoting trucking as a good business, sustainable business, trucking, just like farming, just like construction. It's a good, reputable job. So I think we as a society or industry have just done a really poor job of promoting the value and the opportunity that there is in trucking. For us micrally or internally, I think, and this will be with any business, but I think for us, how do we keep evolving technology? We're a technology company, BulkLoads. So for us, it's just, man, you look at the whole AI industry and kind of what that's come into. And, some people think it's going to be the save all, solve all. I don't believe that, but I do believe that it's going to, obviously it already is playing an integral role. But for us, the challenges are, how do you look to see how AI solves a lot of those manual processes? Because, and it's already happening, the digital revolution on trucking. It was just 4 years ago, most companies were still sending in physical tickets and documentation. That today has just been gone. Truckers, I think farmers probably the same way. You're not sending in hard copy tickets to get paid on grain loads or freight bills or anything like that. It's all electronic. So for us, it's really trying to match what the industry's doing in the technology. That's probably our biggest challenge. That's what probably keeps me up at night more than anything, is like, how do we keep evolving, being a technology company with the technology that's out there?
Are we still short truckers?
The short answer is no. So I think, and again, it's just, you guys took ag econ, right? Supply demand, like, dude, the demand will always fill, if there's supply. I think where people, this is a whole bigger topic. There's been this narrative that there's a shortage of drivers, in my opinion, to get more drivers in the industry, to flush more drivers out, to cycle them through, to get cheap labor. So, you can get big companies promoting driver shortage, where everybody thinks they're, grass is greener there. I'm going to run to that. They get them through there. These guys, they cycle them out. They don't treat them well. They flush them out. And again, it's just a way to get lower cost labor, in my opinion.
That's an interesting take. I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, there's some of these companies that the driver turnover, it's just, in these big mega companies, it's just obscene when you see how many people come through and flush it. And they know, and I don't know this exact, but they have a mathematical formula that they know that they're going to wash out 50 companies, that they're going to have X amount of drivers come in, get them in a truck. They're going to run for 3 months, and then they'll get new ones in there, get new ones in there. Yeah. It can be pretty brutal.
And then you brought up technology, so we got to talk it. There's Teslas out there driving themselves. There's Super Cruise and GM vehicles that's, somewhat self-driving. Is that coming in the trucking industry? And is that part of what you think is going to make it safer?
I think we'd be fools to think it's not. It's going to be in all industries, from even, taxis. Any kind of delivery, trains, planes. I don't think, it's just a matter of time. And I wish I had a crystal ball to say when, but I think that there's got to be more automation in trucking, and there's going to be more implementation. We're already seeing it now. A lot of these new trucks, they have, lane assist and crash control. So I think we have to keep doing that to even also offset the amount of wrecks and crashes that are happening on these highways. So, does Jared see a completely driverless truck in the next 5 years? I don't think so. But do you see a truck that's 99% run automated with a driver up there in the next probably 5-10 years? I could see it as a possibility. And it's already happening. The thing is, right now, it's already, there's completely driverless trucks at a lot of these warehouses within confined spaces. I think, I don't know if it's Amazon or some of these others, but there's trucks that, they're being run 100% without human interaction, that are moving little trailers in small lots. So, it's in safer confinement environments.
Yeah. I got to say, I've been in the Super Cruise on the GM side of things, and never, 2 years ago, I said, why the hell would you need that? And you get in it and it's like, oh, this is nice. It's not just keeping you between two lines. It's sensing if someone's next to you, and if someone's slower in front of you, it'll turn your turn signal on and go ahead and pass it, on the interstate. It's nuts. So it's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
So I want to know, for our listeners, where's the best place to get a good deal on a used truck and trailer? Everybody wants to know where the honey hole is.
That's really not my expertise. I don't get involved on like truck and trailer pricing. I mean, I can tell you where just we have a forum on our website where people talk, and truckpaper.com. I think a lot of people go there. We do have a for sale classified section on BulkLoads that actually gets a lot of attention. I've actually heard a lot of people that have bought and traded on there. But it's interesting because it depends on where you're at in the U.S. and then kind of what you're looking for. There's so many different specs when you're dealing with semi trucks, and there's guys that still want the old classic, quote, long nose trucks. That's the reason why a lot of these guys want to be in the industry, because they want to be driving the old, really stylish, chromed out show rigs. But then there's also the guys that want, more technology, super slick, fuel efficient type vehicles as well. So that's a whole nother topic in sense, because you can go back and forth on the great debate on the classic trucks versus the newer models.
We all like to see them classic panty droppers coming down. That's what Tanner drives. He has to, because he has to compensate for not being so good looking.
Hands. Oh, yeah. I don't know what route you're going. I thought I'd jump. No, I don't have small hands. No. I was actually cruising your classifieds page, and my only critique is your posters needs to stop saying "call for price."
Oh my god!
Too many of them say "call for price." Well, I don't want to do that. Just tell me what it is.
Vetting system. Yeah.
Marketing.
No, that's good. Yeah.
I got one more. In agriculture, if you're not born into it, it's extremely hard to start. I know it's a little bit true if you're owning like a bigger trucking company, but at the end of the day, a guy, if you got the knowledge, can go out and get a loan, hopefully, and buy a truck and pull someone's trailer, or buy a trailer maybe too. So what is the best way for someone to get into the trucking industry?
So trucking, we do see a lot of generational companies. So, grandpa started the business, dad ran it. Now the grandson's running the business. Very successful ones. I can go through and start naming a bunch of those. But trucking, unlike farming, it doesn't require that amount of capital to get into it. If it's actually, I've said this for years, trucking, it's pretty low barriers of entry. So you'll see a lot of companies, and this is kind of where you have a little bit of the washout. But typically, the way we see it, he's been driving for another company for years and wants to go out on his own, have the American dream. So saves up some money, goes to his banker, gets the loan, gets his DOT. Typically, those guys, you can be in business pretty quick. I don't want to say the exact, but within 3 to 4, 6 months, if you're doing it all, you can get the truck, trailer, get the authority, get your license, get on the load board, and start moving pretty quick. So the process is relatively pretty simple. I think to counteract that, I think you have too many people get into it without any business knowledge, not knowing what pricing is, not knowing what rate per mile they should be hauling in. And that's where we're really trying to teach people to make sure that they're not getting into a spot where they can't get out of.
So is that someone that say they did get started, they got the truck, all that, but they don't have the reputation? Is that something you can help them with?
Yeah, absolutely. And in trucking, you got to have a good reputation. You got to do the job, but you're hauling from point A to point B. And there's a lot more. There's service to that, but most companies in the bulk space, and again, I can talk to you when I was a shipper and we hired trucks. For me, it was a matter of like, hey, I got this much to move. And I had certain companies that did business with me that I would maybe pick over. But for it didn't matter whether you were brand new or had 10 years experience. If you had an available truck, you're getting the loads just like everybody else. Because there's just always that much more to move.
Nice.
I can see in some industries, if you get more specialized, trying to get in with, there is something with these bigger companies. So if you want to get in hauling for, let's just say, Cargill out of a soy processing plant or a DDG plant, there is probably more of a line or wait list that you got to have to get on those. And typically the rule of thumb, you'll probably start off owner operator. You'll probably be hauling for a brokerage or some small outfit, maybe even another trucking company that they're dispatching you to haul loads until you get your name out there, get to know it, and then move up where you're hauling more directly or for bigger name type companies.
Good. Well, I only got one question before we wrap up, and I saw on your website that you have a conference. You got your own conference. Who does that apply to? Is that something our listeners should be looking into?
Yeah, man, I'm so glad you brought that up. We are super excited. This will be our 3rd year hosting the Bulk Freight Conference. This was something, it was 4 years ago, we started brainstorming, and one thing we realized, like BulkLoads, we created this ecosystem of shippers, brokers, and carriers, and we did it digitally. Why not bring this to life and bring it out, bring people together in person? So that's what started. Yeah, this will be our 3rd year. It'll be next April 16th through the 18th down here in Branson, Missouri. We rented this huge convention center. I'll say this, our first year when we hosted it, obviously, you learn so much. We had 200 people come. Was an awesome conference. Last year we had 500. This year we're projecting over 1,000. So we'll have a combination of all different trucking companies, shipping companies, freight brokerages, but then also all vendors. So companies like Cornhusker behind here, they're going to be there. Other trailer manufacturers, truck manufacturers will have show trucks. But I guess I'll say this too. So if somebody wants to know why should I attend? I say this all the time. There is a clear difference. You can meet someone on BulkLoads digitally and make that relationship. But when you're sitting with that person face to face, either with a cocktail or appetizer, and you start talking, the relationship that you form and the bond, it's just something naturally, chemically that you will have. I've talked to so many people that after the conference, they maybe were hauling. I mean, there's 2 different scenarios. They maybe were doing work with a company. Well, now that they met them and bettered that relationship, they're doing that much more with them, or somebody they just met that they never knew existed out in the industry. So in this industry, I have this saying, your net worth is your network. So the more you network, the better people you're going to find, the more business you're going to get. And that's the industry we're in. I mean, when especially trucking and shippers, you can never know enough in your database. You can never know enough trucking companies haul for you. If you're a trucking company, you can never know enough shippers because you never know when those opportunities. So yeah, I would love to see people there. It's going to be awesome. Branson, cool town. If you've never been, it's right down here south of Springfield. Very family friendly. There's shows. There's the lake. There's golfing. I mean, it's a really cool spot. So we're super excited to have it down here this year. And it's going to be an awesome event.
Well, if you need a media company to come and document it and curate the event for you, you know who to reach out to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Send us down there. We also, once we hang up, we're going to figure out who that trailer company is that can get us our own fleet. Yeah.
We can't have the back of the hopper. We're going to have something else. That'd be copying.
You're going to want the front of a hopper? Is that what you want?
Well, it kind of almost looked the same.
I've seen, actually, I just saw it on, I think it was on Facebook today. Like someone makes these replicas. It's like the front end
of a fridge.
A fridge. Yeah. That's what you need right there. Just to open it up, get your Busch Light or whatever you want out of there.
Oh my gosh.
That's what you guys need to do for the backdrop.
They are like $4,000 or $5,000, but they are badass.
Wow. That does sound good.
It's a work expense. It's an investment for the backdrop.
Right off.
It's an investment. He tells me that all the time. We're investing in ourselves. We are investing in ourselves.
My wife says it all the time. She says, you tell me everything's an investment. Everything, anytime you want to buy something, it's always an investment.
It should be. Sometimes they're bad investments, but everything's an investment.
Yeah, what I got is she's throwing it back at me now, and she's like, we need this giant 15-foot inflatable pumpkin for Halloween. And I was like, no, it's $300. That's stupid. It's going to blow away. She's like, it's an investment.
It's investing in your happiness.
What? Yeah, in her happiness. That's not an investment.
All right, Jared, we appreciate you hanging out with us. If our listeners want to follow you or track along with what you've got going on, how best do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us all over the place, but yeah, simply BulkLoads.com if you're interested. Even if you're out there and maybe you're a farmer listening to this, thinking about getting commercially licensed, man, reach out. We'd love to talk to you, show you the opportunities. We can give you a sneak underneath the hood if you want to see options and loads in your area. And again, if you're brand new, not even in trucking, we can help you with all those processes to get started. Everything from getting your license, to factoring, insurance, the whole kit and caboodle. Or like I said, if you're out there and you're a trucking company and trying to expand your network, man, would love to talk to you. And it's just it's been a fun ride. So yeah, I would love to. I love talking to people. Events like this, the conference, like we just talking, these things fill me up more than anything. I get super excited about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was our pleasure to have this conversation. And Corey, what do you tell the audience?
Crack a cold one. You deserve it.
Okay, so that's the end of our show. We're trying a little something new, Jared. What if you're willing to participate? What I'd like you to do is kind of introduce yourself. I'm Jared, and where you're from, and the company that you're with. And then if you kind of think here on a relatively quick basis as to what we talked about today, give like a 1 or 2 line sentence. I'm Tanner Winterhoff. I'm from Central Iowa, co-host of the Farm Profit podcast. Today we talked about the weather and snow tires, whatever it was. We're playing around with that idea of maybe a quick clip that we can use to demonstrate what listeners are going to
Promo at the front of the show, basically.
Yeah, I can give it a whirl.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jared Flinn from. Let me try this again. Okay. Hi, I'm Jared Flinn, co-host of the BulkLoads podcast. I came on to the show today and we talked everything in bulk freight trucking, everything from how to start a trucking company to finding freight, insurance, and everything that's involved. We'd love for you to listen to the show today. God bless.
That's great. Perfect. That was awesome.
Try it again?
No.
I think that was smooth. Unless someone in the room is telling you to do it again.
No.
No, I'm going to hit stop. I liked it.
Yep.